Good morning, everyone. My name is Beth Guide. I'm with Vertical Web, and we're going to do a special internet marketing clinic today. It's going to be just me. I don't have my normal class people with me because I have a very serious subject that I want to go over with everyone so that we can all learn how to do this. And maybe if you see this video, you can avoid the pitfalls of taking a successful website and hiring the wrong web designer that breaks that website. In the 28 years I've been doing this, I feel like our best customers are the customers that were somewhere else that had to come to us and ask us to repair a website that was a flip gone wrong, an upgrade gone wrong. And we do it very well because usually the mistakes are somewhat common. The other thing is when we do these internet marketing clinics, we often get the question of, A, does my website designer need to know SEO? And two, does my website designer know SEO? And how do I know? Because let's face it, everybody says they know how to do it. But there's a very limited set of people that truly have the tool set to be able to do it. I think that one of the reasons that we're so good at it is that we've been at it for so long that we kind of were on the ground floor of SEO. So we've evolved with inside the industry. And I think those that have come to the industry late, there's some of these nuanced points that get lost and often don't get taught. They really don't get taught. About a year ago, Google came out and said, had a leak, and there's about 14,000 data points within inside that Google algorithm. So you really have to understand how things work to make it work together. So today I'm going to take a website that we worked on, had it going real well. Customer decided to go in a different direction about a year ago. And they've reached out to me and asked me if I could tell them what was wrong with this website. And ultimately, they're coming back to us. So I want to go through those steps with you today. If you're a new person or a business owner and I'm talking to you, I think the thing is that I'm going to end up giving you the things to look for. So the first thing that you should always do when you're hiring anybody to do web design is you should ask them, do you know SEO? 9 out of 10 of them are going to say, yes, absolutely. I know SEO. I'm an expert at SEO. I know what I'm doing. They're going to be pretty emphatic about it. But the catch to this is, and where this needs to be looked at, I think, is you need to ask for references so that you can go to those websites and you can go through and you can evaluate whether they really know or not. The points that I'm going to give in this video are going to help you discern whether that person actually knows SEO or not based on the websites that they are giving you as example sites. So that way, I can say it all day long, but then I go open it and there's something messy on the page. So this video is going to be two-part. One is going to be what happens when you hire somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, and two, how do you avoid hiring somebody that doesn't know what they're doing? So with that said, let's go ahead and get started today. And I'm going to bring up the website and we'll go ahead and start talking about it and talk through a lot of data points on this. So this is the website that I'm talking about. And I want to kind of go down it from a really rudimentary way. And then I'm going to go do a deep dive on how do I get to some of the things that I got to. So one of the very first things when I open this website in its present form is I can see right out of the box that this person does not know how to write content, does not know how to write a custom title tag. There's a lot of technical problems wrong with the website. So the very first thing that you're going to do, if you're evaluating whether someone knows SEO or not, is you're going to look up here and you'll see where I'm looking at the top of the screen, and it says custom vacations to Italy. And that's the title tag of this page. Okay. Now, usually what I see is anything from the company's name to the word home. I never really see robust enough title tags to support whether the web page itself. Okay. I go here, and this is what the website used to look like before it got flipped. And you'll see the title tag on this says custom trip to Italy. Plan the best trip to Italy vacation. Now, that sounds a little clunky, of course, because, you would say plan a trip to Italy, or, you might say Italian vacation, best Italian vacation. Not to get too wonky, but Google thinks Italians are people and Italy is a destination. So you wouldn't necessarily use the word Italian. The next thing I want you to notice is what the navigation bar looks like. Okay. So this says trip types. Trip types could be anything from Uber to a myriad of different types of things. Packages, that's things that Amazon delivers. You also notice that there's no drop downs underneath them so that Google can't get its hooks into it. So the title bar here, the navigation bar rather, has no distinct verbiage on it that helps Google understand what that navigation is about. There's no roll downs for them to deep spider the website. The title tag is extremely weak. And if I come into this first frame, okay, I got custom Italian vacations, and I just got done saying Italians are people. Italy is the destination. So that's a little bit off there. And then it says experience the best of Italy with a custom crafted trip built entirely for you. It's lack of keywords and the proper sprinkling of keywords into it. Experience the best trip to Italy would be a more appropriate way to say it. But overall, what I would look at when I see this is I say, okay, this guy's a little weak on SEO. The keywords are missing because I was kidding around and I said bespoke. I'm ignorant. I mean, I have a college education. I'm ignorant. I don't know what bespoke is. Bespoke apparently is custom. But there's nothing in here that leads the end user to understand what's going on. It also doesn't say what kind of trips. Now, if I come back to the comparison site, okay, we went with custom Italy vacation because Italy vacation is a more adaptable keyword. So we kind of kept it short and sweet up there. But if you notice the drop downs on here, this is not the live site. This is a archive.org version of it. You'll notice that we have types of trips, we have types of packages, we have destinations. We didn't just say regions, reviews, comma, blue, we had all of that. But if you notice, I'm telling Google what to go look at and where to go. I'm telling Google what to look at and where to go. And I did that all the way along throughout this website when we originally built it. Okay, so we're going to come back to the live site, how it sits today. All right, so now I'm going to start to come down a little bit, and I'm going to say vacationing to Italy. That's okay. It's like not necessarily a money term, meaning that would not be a keyword that, I would necessarily go with. We can all talk about keywords, and I have classes on keywords, but the reality is that's a little bit weak. And then the value of these things that they have here are not right either. And I want to show you a little bit about that. I've got to change how I'm sharing my screen. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to share my entire screen this time. All right. So I have this program here that tells me how things are. So let's come back to the website just for a second. When you are putting headings in, you have to signal them out to Google and tell Google what the website's about. And you never want to waste those on superfluous things. If they don't pertain to the website or what you're selling or a money term, the H tags should not be used in any way other than to explain to Google and then to your end user what the page is about. So you notice we have some of these here, and I'm going to come back into my little software program here, and it's going to tell me what they checked as H tags. So if I look at the homepage of this website, I'm going to come here, and I'm going to come down over to the right on this spreadsheet that I have, which is probably going to be a little hard for you all to read, but I want just to make the point on this, I want you to understand. So you see that this one has a title tag of custom vacations to Italy. When I come over, its meta description is more destinations and travel experiences than any other travel site. It doesn't say anything about trips to Italy. It just says more destinations and travel experience. So the description tag, which is a second piece, which you can't necessarily see easily, that's messed up. But if I come over all the way over to here, my first H1 tag is custom Italian vacation. Again, Italians are people. Italy is the country, is the destination. So we're yelling at Google custom Italian vacations. We have a second one that is not formed right that says array. The third one says vacationing to Italy, and we could go proof that out, but that's a very weak key term. And then we have another one that says has never been easier. Okay. And when you put a secondary term in that says has never been easier, those of you who've taken a class from me live and in person, you know that if I walked out of a room and I walked in a room and said has never been easier, you would have no idea what I'm talking about. Am I talking about booking a vacation? Am I talking about making mac and cheese? Am I talking about joining a gym? So we're yelling at Google things that are not valid. And then I come over, and honestly, it doesn't look like you have anything else. It's all blank all the way over here. We should have H2s, H3s, and maybe even H4s. Okay. But we don't have any of those. We have one H1 that says custom vacation. Then we have vacationing in Italy. And then the second one says, has never been easier. When I look at something like that, that tells me immediately that the person that wrote this has literally no idea what they're doing. Okay. So for your personal information, I'm going to assume that anything's big and bold is an H tag. Okay. So let's come back to the site again. And we're going to say custom Italian vacations. We know that was made into an H1. Vacationing in Italy is an H2. The has never been easier was put on its own line. It doesn't make any sense. Then I come down and I have things like exclusively crafting, more destinations. None of these were coded right, but they're all basically null and void of keywords or signals to Google of what they should be doing. So when I look at a homepage like this, even if I knew that it had, let's say I thought every one of them was an H1, an H2, or H3, which is a designation in your website builder. But what you have to think about, just so we know, if you don't know what I mean with H1, H2, and I've lost you, I'd say, Dewey beats Truman would be like an H1, if you ever remember those old newspaper clippings like that. An H2 might be, a little bit smaller type of a headline. 9/11 had an H1 type headlines all over it. I remember when I'm trying to think. I want to like be my little mobster Italian self here and tell you that when John Gotti got shot, the Daily News had a headline on it, but it would have been the equivalent of a second, um, a secondary situation where I guess when John Gotti died, I guess I should say, because I don't think he was ever shot. But the moral of the story is that when you're doing these things, the smaller and the less important those headlines are, the less they get smaller down a page. If you remember, newspapers, this is a very newspaper-esque type exercise that the bigger headlines are at the top and as you come down the page. So they have a lot of things here that make no sense. Exclusively crafting doesn't make any sense. To the most destinations doesn't make any sense. Personalized itineraries doesn't make any sense. Okay. Some musings from our blog doesn't make any sense. All right. None of that makes sense. So I'm going to scroll up back here. Now I want to come down the page that I did, which I don't say it's perfect, but so I've got my custom Italy vacation. I know the difference between Italy and Italians. Creating a one-of-a-kind Italy vacation. Okay. And I have the choose your Italy destination, not just choose your destination, create your itinerary, book your trip to Italy. So there's more keywords there. Popular Italy vacation destinations. So popular Italy vacation is another set of keywords. This one was a throwaway type. And then we have sample Italy vacation itineraries. And then if you notice, we have Italian honeymoon vacations, and they were coded in a way so that Google understood them. And then we rolled out a paragraph to support the Google, honeymoon vacations. Okay. So we've hit the types of travel, the group travel, we've hit the vacation words, we've hit all of those things. These elements are missing on the site now. So if I was to look at this website, I would say it doesn't have keywords. It's got a bad title tag. And if you're just a business owner trying to evaluate this, I would then go to the next page. And I see this a lot. Whereas the home page and the next page, they all have similar things. They may say services. This one says custom trip to Italy, and its page name is trip type. Okay, so the trip type matches this trip type here. The title tag, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong window. The trip type, you notice they took the title tag and they made the title tag trip type instead of, some type of, types of vacation. So if we come back over to my demonstration site, if I go to the Italy vacations page, I know that Italy vacation packages is the key term, and it does take a minute for this to load. My URL says Italy vacation. It doesn't just say trip type. So it's a completely different way about thinking about how to do all of this. And then you talk Italy vacation packages. Okay. Now he's saying custom trip to Italy, which, I kind of, I could nitpick this and say trips. And then it says from romantic honeymoons to unforgettable family vacations for your perfect trips awaits. In there, it doesn't say romantic Italy honeymoons or family vacations in Italy, your perfect Italian trip awaits, which I know don't say Italian, but I mean, this again is devoid of keywords. And when you evaluate the work that's done on somebody else's website, you need to think about, if I walked in a room and I just said romantic honeymoons, would you know where we were going? Would you know what we were doing? If I'm writing a novel, maybe romantic honeymoon is okay, but I'm trying to sell a vacation. So if I'm trying to sell a vacation, this romantic honeymoon might be an issue because the Italy is not in there. All right. For romantic Italian honeymoons for unforgettable family vacation in Italy. Both of those are keywords. So we're lacking, and then we come down And then it says, no country offers a better combination of romance and beauty. It should say no country. No country other than Italy. There were missing the key terms. So that and if you notice how brief these paragraphs are versus how brief, I had longer paragraphs and hid them. Okay. So there's when I look at this, I can see that this is, I find myself sometimes saying it's a piano that's out of tune. So the person that did this knew enough to try to do some of these things. Now, remember I talked about the H tags throughout the website. Okay. This page here, if I come back to our analysis of it, the trip type is the second page down. It's the second row down. If you come across trip types is our title tag. Of course, that doesn't types of trips to Italy or something along those lines, but we didn't do that. We just went with the word trip type. And then if you come across, this one had no meta description on it. And as you can see from the home page on down, there literally is no meta descriptions on a majority of these pages. Okay. I come over, I have no H tag. I have no H1. Do I have? Oh, the H1 on this one says crafted for you. So it might be an Italy vacation. It might be craft beer. It might be craft mac and cheese and somebody spelt it wrong. Crafted for you is not an H tag. So there's an improper use of H tags throughout this website, the new version of it. Okay. So there's a whole lot of technical problems wrong with this website the way it sits right now, because it's not put together to tell. In fact, frankly, this website is actually okay. Yeah, I was going to say I'm losing columns here, but this website, the technical aspects of this website are extremely poor. Okay. So I think we've made enough of a point about that piece of it for the moment. Okay. So when you evaluate the website and you're trying to decide whether somebody actually knows what they're doing or not, I would look at the title tag and see if the title tag is written in a manner that is useful, that explains what it is and uses words and just doesn't make the assumption, well, trip type, I'm on a site for Italy, so of course they must be Italy trips. When the reality is the word trip type means nothing to Google. It means nothing to ChatGPT. It gives no solid type answers to anything or at all. All right. So that's the first set of things. The next thing is, what does the navigation bar say? And the third set of things is, what do these pages, does the pages themselves say? I'm going to show you another one just because I'm not involved with this one, but this nice lady came to talk to me. And this one, I know SEO, as you can see, there's really nothing in the navigation bar that tells you. If I look at and this is more in line with the mistakes that I see. The title tag is just the name of the business. And the reality is, especially with people that have newer businesses, if you don't have a brand name, by putting your name on the bar like that without any explanation of what you do is completely counterproductive. The next thing is the H1 tags on all of this are all messed up. And the writing on this doesn't really tell you a lot about what this website's about. I don't want to dwell too long on it because this is not really what this is about, but this is a great example of a website that looks great. The designer was good at art, but knew nothing about SEO, despite the fact that they said they did. Okay, which is what the common mistake is. Yes, I know about SEO, and then I find, these type things. But this is, that's not as egregious as this other website. This other website's got so many problems. It's not, because once I start to tell you where it was and where this new site is, you'll start to see that there's some validity in what's right and wrong on this. So if you notice, I have my Italy vacation packages. I've got a menu here of honeymoon packages, family vacations, group travel, guided tours, so on and so forth, and did it all here so that people understand what they need to do. And if you look under here, I've got honeymoons in Venice, honeymoons in Rome, honeymoons in Tuscany. I've got all types of things that are keywords for this, for those travel and those travel pages. Okay. So everything that we do is done with SEO. What this is missing is a call to action. So remember, this was done probably 3 or 4 years ago. This website was put up pre-COVID, this version of this website. It's missing, especially in today's day and age, it's missing calls to action on all of this stuff. So there is problems from the conversion standpoint, but there is not problems on this version of the website from a SEO standpoint. Okay. So, all right. So we've kind of beat this up on the design piece. Every page I touch on this has got the same problems. Packages. Again, no travel vacation packages to Italy might be an appropriate title. Customizable and unique, again, is the H1 tag. So every one of these pages have similar problems to them. Let's go here. This one here actually is a little bit better, but it's only because we wrote some of this years ago. They just took some of the stuff that we had and redid it. But at least I've got Rome and Amalfi tour, 6-day escorted tour vacation packages, and I've got the years, so that helps keep it a little bit fresher for Google. So, if the year was put, and the thing is, the year was put in the URL, and you can't put the year in the URL because every year you have to update that. And if you put it in the URL, then it's sending a bad signal that way. So that's another problem that we've got running around in this. Okay, so the URLs are bad. Okay. So the first thing before I go any further on what is wrong with this website, the structural problems with it. The other thing is that there was interlinking that was supposed to be done on these pages, and the interlinking is not correct. Okay. So we kind of have this kind of going on here. This menu only points into here. So it doesn't necessarily work right. And then if I come into these, I have my travel guide pages, except that when I come to the bottom, this one doesn't have it. I found others that have it. Hang on, let me see if this one. The interlinking of these pages and plain anchor text should have been put back at the bottom. It was not done. So if you look, come over here, let's go to Regions of Italy. I want to show you the right way that this should have been done. So the thing is that the elements that we had on the page, I think the designer assumed that these were superfluous items or stupid things that we put on the page that didn't really need to be there. All right. Let me just pick Lazio here. It's going to pull it up, so it's just going to take it a second again. I do apologize. I don't mean to have dead air while this thing is chugging along, but there's, oh, well, you can't go to it. Well, this is another part of the problem because they broke all these pages. Let me see if I can do it from Lombardi, which is a bigger page. In fact, that's a whole nother discussion we're going to have here in a minute. Okay, so here we have the travel guide. We have the same, you're starting to see some of the same things. We had a photo gallery. And this is one of their pages. There's an interconnection. So what ended up needed to happen is at the bottom of the pages, and I can't pull them up right now because they're not hooked up. I'd have to hunt and peck around to find it. There needed to be a tie-in of those pages. Now I understand there's a sub-navigation here of those, and that could service part of it, but I don't know that this is tacked in right. I would have actually put them to the bottom and put a related post section together for them so that they had this interconnection, because basically what it's doing is building mini websites back for Abruzzo. So you would go to each one of these. And then the other thing that needs to be down here is the other areas that are connected. So there's all this whole interconnection and related posts. They use the word siloing for it now, but the siloing is missing off this website on these pages. So these pages don't rank like they used to because Google can't deep spider these pages because all this navigation stuff is missing off the bottom of these pages. Again, I think they need a call to action. There needed to be, I mean, at one point we had a form on the side of these pages, but people weren't actually utilizing it. But at the end of the day, there's stuff missing off these pages. And because those elements are missing, this website doesn't rank. So these pages weren't put together right, and done in a way that they should have been done either. So there's that aspect of this that's missing as well. So what is the outflow of all of this? So what I want to do is I want to bring this up here. This is SEMrush for those of you that don't know, and this is some looking at how this website was. So this is where it was in 2020, in 2024, before they flipped this site. So they flipped it in February. You can see it drove right off a cliff. And dropped itself way down. Now, what I will tell you is I want you to remember that there is a COVID period in here. And because of the COVID period in there, there is some dips in this that came in. But once we came back out of COVID, this website, was going up and was, doing okay and going in the right direction. So now let's talk about some of the things that were not done that caused this to be a problem. Now, if you're looking from a hired website designer person, and you have access to SEMrush, you may want to ask for a before and an after and say, hey, where was the website before? Where was it after? That might be something to consider. If you have access to tools like this, it would also tell you a lot about what happened to a website and what the narrative is. And I will say, we often see people leave us that have these type crashes. I mean, this has been, and some of them come back and some of them keep going down the road, chasing and never get where they need to be. So, but let's talk about, some more things here that you can see as to why. So far, the title tags, the navigation, the H tags, and is there a siloing of pages, or are pages interconnected? If I utilize my own vertical website, I'm in the process of rebuilding this one too. But if I use mine and I come down the web design, let me just go to the web design tab for a second. You'll see I have, high impact web design, local Houston web design, web design portfolio. I have all the elements that you're supposed to have. This is the interconnection of the pages here. Okay, so we have all of that. And then I have the web design pages siloed together. So you can see I have related web design. I have the Houston web design and development. What is web development? I have that together so that Google can see, hey, this is a web design page. This is the page we really want ranked, and everything about it is supported within the page. If I go to this web design company page over here, you come all the way down. Again, you'll see web design versus web development, Houston Web Design Company, web development services. You start to see the attributes all the way through it, okay? But when I come all the way down to the bottom, you notice again, related topics, web design company, web development services, they're all interconnected so that Google understands these pages are together and that this is the page that we have decided is the page that we think is the most important page we have on the subject. All of that was stripped out of the Trips to Italy site. And if all that was done and the rest of this was done right, this may not be as bad as we think, okay? So, where I want to go is we're going to go back over to some of this analytics stuff that you use to go say. So you can see that we've had a drop in traffic, but I have a count that allows us to go back in time and see what this website would have looked like back at the period of time we're talking about. So if I go back to January 24, you see that the organic traffic was tracking at about 10%, and it had a 20% down. But you also notice that it had 25,000 keywords this thing was ranked on. So when I say 25,000 keywords, that's 25,000 opportunities for somebody to find your website. What else I want to point out is that in January of 2024, we had 109 terms in the first three, 1, 2, and 3. We also had 821 terms that were on the first page, 2,000 on the second page, and then, the rest of everything starts to go into oblivion. But I had over 1,000 terms on the first page of Google on this website. So, and that's so that we're looking at that, and you see that we had 25,000. And if I come back to now, let's just kind of have apples and oranges. So, or apples and today. So we're talking about the same thing. We have 1,600 on the traffic. We have 5,000 keywords. And on the front page of Google, we have 35 and 200. So we're down by 80% on the front page of Google. 80%. I said we had 2,000 terms on pages on the second page. This website has 592. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the reasons that is. Okay, so I can come in and we're going to go look by organic keyword, and I want to look at the keywords that we have now so you can understand some of the problems that we have on this. So the very next thing that I would look at on this would be, what are the keywords that I have and what is the intent of those keywords? Okay, so if you look down, I've got some that are, they're sitting within the top, the top of the searches. People also ask, but what you'll notice, this is a localized term, travel agent near me. But past that, what you're going to do is you're going to figure out really quickly that none of these are money terms, meaning something that somebody will put into Google that would yield a sale, like a trip to Italy, a honeymoon to Italy, an Italian vacation, other than these travel agents specializing in travel agent near me, those type of things, okay, which locks them into Houston. Whereas this is an international company, it locks them into Houston, okay? And you can see where we are. We've got a lot of these, the best Italian movies of all time. Well, that's not going to help us. The Flag of Siena, that's not going to help us. So all the words that I look at that we have some rankings on, none of them for the most part. Now, this one here may be the first one that I have found that has some value to it. Italy trips for 2. Okay, so that had 50 searches. That's the first one that I have found that has a money term attached to it. Okay. So Italy, Italian, they're local. So there's a lot of terms that have nothing to do with buying a trip or a vacation to Italy, but have everything to do with kind of obscure references to things. Okay. So now let's roll the clock back to when we had the 50, the 25,000. Oh, the other thing I want you to note here is you see the keywords, the amount of traffic it's predicting, and what it says the cost of that traffic would be. It's always interesting when you look at what the traffic cost would be and what it looks like. And then let's roll it back to January. Again, let's stay apples to apples. Okay. You look, it's 5,900, 10,000 keywords, 6,300 on the traffic. It was already starting to tank downward because of when they flipped this. But if we start to look, we're ranked on trips to Italy, okay, which is missing off that other one. And as I start to come down, I'm going to start to top 10 places to visit in Italy. Well, that's somebody looking to buy a vacation or looking to go on vacation. So that's a potential person that's looking for something that may be doing research because they're going on their own, but maybe will visit the site and say, hey, you know what? Let me call this person and see if they want to, I can buy the vacation from him or what's involved in doing that. Chianti Wine Tours of Florence. That's another one. So, if I come down this list through these first 1,000 terms, there's words like that have Italy. Here's another one: best parts of Italy to visit. Okay, so this website had a lot of terms that were money terms, meaning that commerce could be conducted on them, as opposed to the other set of words that we just looked at that were somewhat vague, superfluous, and really had nothing to do with buying a vacation and had to do about doing a research project for Italy. Here's another one: best places to travel to in Italy. That's another one. Top 10 destinations to Italy. That's another one. What else was interesting about all of this, okay, is that when I come over here and I click on this page that had a people also ask question on, that was a relatively easier page to rank on, I click on it and I do it, you notice that they didn't account for that page that was there and it doesn't redirect. So they did not preserve the URLs, nor did they redirect the URLs. What I'm going to say, so everybody can hear me say this, is those URL strings are important, but understand that historically, when you do redirects on a website, Google only honors about 80% of those redirects. So if you can match them up exactly, that's best of all. So there really was no reason to change these URL strings. I know they're a little chunky, but because they had come out of so many different systems, the best thing to have done was to keep them the same and utilize the old 301 redirect map that we had on that website. But that doesn't appear that's what happened here. So we ended up with a lot of broken pages that were ranking on vacations, vacation packages, trips, trip types, you name it. But yet, these pages were not, they were not accounted for, and therefore went away. So again, we've gone through the first set of things that said, hey, how do I figure out whether somebody knows what they're doing or not? Well, here's the next level of this that demonstrates that they don't. If you asked me to find something like this, I could vet it out. How you, when you're looking to hire a web designer, could find it, you'd have to have a little bit better knowledge of it, but it would be as simple as, trying to go and find some backlinks and see if they're still hooked up. I mean, it's not that hard to say that this entire website was completely smashed when it was flipped, and that's why the website was broken. As I say that, I'm gonna add this to it just for a second. This is not the first time I've seen this. I actually see this quite a bit. I usually don't have the luxury of having my stuff taken out, flipped, and destroyed. It's usually somebody else, web design company comes in to destroy it, and then somebody's coming and asking me to come fix it. To put it in perspective, one of my other customers, they've been with us about 10 years. But when they got here, they ran into me at a class in downtown Houston. And it was the same problem. We had a website and then they took it out of what it was in, and then all our leads stopped. And can you fix it? And I went and I looked at it, and it was a whole bunch of no title tags, no H tags. At the time, they didn't have a lot of ranking pages per se. So it was a little bit easier to fix it and put it all back. And then put in the redirects on the old pages. We just had to put the redirects in on the old pages. It wasn't like the pages were missing. They just forgot to name and change the URL strings on everything. So this became a huge thing. Okay. So let's keep moving forward. So we now know that that we lost all our rankings and that we took the ranking pages and the ranking pages were not preserved, and therefore they lost their rankings because they didn't do it. Now let's talk about this scenario. I take a page, I preserve the URL, I change all the text on the URL on the web on the page. Does the ranking stay? And the answer is probably not, but it wouldn't be as damaging as this because there's another component of this that got broken in addition to the rest of all of this. So what else got broken is the backlinks profile. And let's look at that. So, you know, we're talking on-site and technical. So far I've handled the on-site SEO. I'm telling you about the technical SEO. And now I'm going to tell you about backlinks. So let's log into our Ahrefs account. I should have done this before I did this. Yeah, let me pull this in. So you see, again, a similar pattern line that the website, you know, was getting traffic, it fell off the cliff. It's all the same information we just kind of did, except the other thing it's going to do is it's going to tell me about the backlinks profile. Okay. The backlinks profile does not have as dramatic of a drop off as the other one did. It does have some, but it doesn't have as dramatic of a profile drop. However, I want to go in and I want to start talking about this. So we're going to look at it, and I want to look at these referring domains. Okay. Now, I already told you that the pages were not accounted for well. So here's one here from the Smithsonian Institute. I already know. So to get a link from the Smithsonian where they're following your website, that's a really big deal. This is a really big domain to get a link from. And it's something that doesn't happen every day. It happened naturally because somebody used it as a reference page, and it's the Smithsonian gives credit to those. But if you notice the URL, that I can see it without clicking through, it has that little T to I or T2 number 2I appended to the end of it, which means that that page is not going to work. So if I tell it to open that page in a new tab, boom, I now have a 404 page. So as a result, the Smithsonian has a broken link on their website that if that goes away, that will never come back. Okay. So that is historically throughout all of this, what has happened. So I have a link profile with a big bunch of broken links on it now. I believe this one is broken as well. So this is from How Stuff Works, and this is also yet another one that is. And if you notice, we have History of Lombardy, which is there, and then we had our newer pages. We actually preserved the name of the old site. There was an old Magento site that I had to drag along. So there was multiple levels of 301 redirects that had to be accounted for and had to be accounted for right. And this is an example. So this is an older structure. I can see that. But the reality is they didn't preserve that page. So I can kind of come down all of this one by one by one by one. We're going to find that we have a lot of broken links on this. Now, if I go to the first scene, I'm going to flip it upside down for a second. Okay. You notice I have Book Plane Now, a 2.4 website. So I'm thinking somebody's trying to build links to this website. Well, you know what? Maybe not, because I don't think this page works either. Nope. So even the newest links it's finding out on the internet, they're all they're not found because none of these old pages were found or accommodated or accounted for. And it completely destroyed this website. So you can see those big drop-offs and those big downturns. So these signals that I'm telling you about now are not things like if you were looking to hire a company. These are things that you would have to know somebody like me to give you tools and say, okay, yes, they gave us this example. This has been their client. I might ask, how many site flips have you been involved in? And then if they say, oh, we do site flips all the time, then your next question should be, hey, can I have an example of that? I wouldn't be opposed to picking up a phone and calling those people and saying, hey, what was your experience with these people? I wouldn't have any problem like that. But the thing is, for somebody to have this extensive of a knowledge of what I'm demonstrating, and basically I'm kind of telling people, I'm telling competitors, hey, this is what you would need to do to flip a website, right? I don't have any problem doing with that, because all these things have to go together. It's like a really good chef, okay? I could tell you to make spaghetti sauce, being we're talking about Italy, that you need tomato sauce, you need some red wine, you need oregano, you need Italian seasoning, you need garlic. But a really good chef knows how to put that all together, and make it come out that it's not just blah. And that's kind of what an SEO expert is kind of like a really good chef, that they know how to take all the ingredients and meld them together well so that you rank on the terms that are going to put money in the door. Um, you know, anybody can cook, but I'm using the word to be chef. So, um, you know, opening a jar of ragu or prego does not make you a chef. It just makes you able to open a jar of spaghetti sauce. What I'm looking at is somebody that, it opened just a jar of spaghetti sauce. And if it tastes good, great. If it doesn't taste good, great. I would have had this fixed. If I had done this level of mistakes on this website, I would have had this fixed way faster and way sooner. But I think these are really important questions that you need to ask somebody before you give them, the keys to your business. Because if your website's doing 25,000, I'll go back, just an anecdotal story. I have a really good friend, and his name is Tom, and not this Tom. But he owned a lighting company. And that lighting company was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And there was three business partners, and the one business partner was an SEO expert, and the other two guys were not SEO experts, but they didn't like how the website functioned, and they didn't like how the website works. Remember, I said it's making a couple $100,000 a month. I don't consider that a broken website. All right. But they were like, hey, we're just going to go make it look better. So they went and they got a custom programmer guy, and he put it all together, and he put the whole website together, and it was fairly similar in aesthetics, but it corrected some of the issues that it said. But what it didn't do is put all the interconnection of the pages back properly. So it basically kicked the support out. So that website ended up going from $200,000 to $500,000 a month to 20,000. And when I got back involved in it, it was all the way down to 8,000. It went all the way down the tubes, and it went down the tubes because it was a poor site flip. They didn't put it back together right. Nobody addressed it. And because nobody addressed it, it just kind of sat out there. Once we got our hands back on it, I did fix it. I did bring the traffic back. I never got the revenue back to a couple 100,000. I mean, that was not, and that wasn't going to happen. Because of, the market had changed, the industry had changed, pricing had changed, shipping had changed. There was a lot of things that competition had changed. So there was a lot of things that had happened that made that business not run as well as it had previously. But had it stayed, it not been messed around with and let to go all the way down to $8,000 a month, it would have held its own for a whole lot longer. So there's all kinds of stories like this. But you have to look at this, and I'm not just beating the Google drumbeat anymore, because I think that business now has to look everything across multi-channel. It's not just a, hey, how do I rank in Google problem anymore. Amazon's kind of affected things. I mean, there's been a lot of changes within the marketplace. Like for this, Costco does vacations. So this guy where he was, on his own for the longest time, he's got to compete now against Costco vacations in Trafalgar, so there's some, there's always market conditions that change. But the thing is that when you have a website that's ranking that well, before you go giving the keys to somebody, you need to make sure that the people you're handing the keys to actually know what they're doing. Um, and that's a really big piece of this. I am going to put this old website back. I want to put it back because there's so many backlinks that got broke because of the page name changes. I don't think I can find them all to account for them all, and I can't just do it with a wild card. So I'm actually meaning that I can't just say send all those pages that are 404 to the homepage, because part of this is the link equity was distributed throughout the website, so the whole website was strong. If I just send it back to the homepage, maybe the homepage is strong, but there's no in-link equity throughout it. So there's, again, that's the difference between a chef and a jar of spaghetti sauce. Okay, so I could make the decision to take all 404 errors and send it to the homepage. And that at least would have helped some of it. But the reality is that that is not the way to tune the piano to be the best it possibly can be. It's more, um, now it's more, this is, so I'm going to just put it back. So we can look at this again in a month or two and see what it looks like and what happens once we put it back. See if it's like watering a wilted plant or it's been off too long. And one thing I'm going to have to do, though, just so you know, is that when I go and take this other site down, I'm going to have to account for all those URLs. So I'm going to actually I'm going to have my system admin write with regular expressions, some redirects for me that try to put things in the right places, so that we don't now have 404 errors everywhere. So I'm now going to have to account for that. Just so you know, this thing was so complex, that this will be went from Magento to a custom build to WordPress. So that was 3. Went to this, so that's 4. It's going to go back to the original, so that's 5. And then I'm going to end up rebuilding the site. So that is 6. So this website has had to go through 6 iterations, and we have to account for every part of that. Because if you don't, I end up with similar problems. But you have to know that you actually have to account for them, and you have to ask those questions of somebody when you do this kind of stuff. And when you see the traffic go off the cliff, the first thing you should do is go put the old site back until you figure out what's wrong with it. Because a website that is flipped properly will never go into a complete and utter straight downhill nosedive. That's just not a thing. And you're not going to bounce it back out of it, that it's going to go all the way down off a cliff, and then you're going to be able to build it back up, that it's just going to go down and then with a straight curve back up. If I ever saw that and it happened with us within the first few weeks, I would be in seconds putting that old website back. So with all of that said, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you learned something with all of this, and I hope that this is helpful to you. So this is Beth Guide with Vertical Web, and we'll be back soon. That's a wrap for this week's Internet Marketing Clinic. We'll see you next week. Thank you.